ESPN's NFL Live talking about why the running back has all of a sudden become devalued in the NFL. Adam Schefter, holy God, get a glass of water. I've never seen Adam Schefter look this hungover / disheveled. He looks like, that's exactly the kind of look after a long beach weekend. He's kind of tan. Eyes are just out of, somebody get this guy a coffee, a liquid IV, some bananas, some potassium. Goodness, Adam.
What are your thoughts on the running back market and why it looks that way right now?
Yeah, Field, I think it has so much to do with how the game has changed over the past 20 years, and that's been...
Yeah, so obviously, right? Now, the whole point of this conversation, or the reason for this conversation, is that there are so many good running backs, good asterisk, because Ezekiel Elliott is in there. I don't think he's good anymore. But there's so many good running backs in free agency. Why don't any of these teams want him, and why are teams so quick to drop their running backs, a la Dalvin Cook? And this young man who, this walking thumb right here is correct. The game has changed. You don't need a running back, right? Anyone can do the running back job. It's almost like when the MLB, Major League Baseball, shifted away from the starting pitcher that was expected to go 8 innings strong every single day and say, you know what, let's just get a bunch of pitchers who can go 3 innings and let's just play the matchups. And that kind of shifted the MLB. It became more of a analytic-driven batter versus pitcher situation. That's how I think it is in the NFL, where they realize, man, no running back, the game is not set up to where a running back is going to run the ball 40 times a game anymore. There aren't any Ricky Williamses. There's not any Emmitt Smiths out there. There is no 40 carry a game guys. It's 10 carries a game and a couple receptions, and anyone can do that. Anyone can do that to the level they need it to happen. The best running backs in the NFL just aren't that impactful anymore. Like if you go back and think, okay, who are the best running backs in the NFL? Derrick Henry is probably one of the ones top 5, right? Derrick Henry, unless he's running for 200 yards a game, isn't that impactful. Look at my phone going off here, boys. Jeez, sorry about that, man. You think I'd be better at this? Christian McCaffrey was MVP level best running back in the NFL in Carolina. How impactful was it? Not much, right? And then you look at some running backs who you would think are they at that level, but they're impactful enough to where they're good, right? Like they're good for their team. The Pacheco or whatever for Kansas City. What was his name? Isaac Pacheco, Ian Pacheco, something like that. You wouldn't put him in the same category as Christian McCaffrey, but he was impactful enough because he could do what they asked of him. He probably couldn't run the ball 40 times a game for an entire season. He's not that, but no one needs that anymore. Jamal Williams for the Detroit Lions led the NFL in touchdowns. Who cares? No one cares. All of a sudden now he's with the Saints. Jerome Bettis, old running backs like that, goal line vultures, just not needed. A lot of quarterbacks run now. That's also a big change too, is why do you need a running back that's going to be expected to carry the ball 40 times when you're passing a lot and your quarterbacks are now running? We see that with the Eagles. The Eagles are most dangerous when Jalen Hurts is running. So do they really need a Derrick Henry type back? No, they don't. They need a versatile back, and the Eagles are another good example where teams are willing to do multiple backs. Teams are willing to have 1-2 backs that both get 8 carries and then a quarterback that gets 4 or 5 carries himself.
Towards a heavier shift towards the pass. Running backs are just not getting as many carries in total, whether it be 1 back, 2 back, 3 backs, and we're seeing teams move towards more rotations and more specialized roles. You would figure if anyone's going to get paid, it's that sort of bell cow workhorse back. Well, there aren't as many of those as there were 20 years ago. Go back to
The issue is also the way contracts are set up in the NFL. So let me just wax poetic here for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a rookie running back, let's say Bijan Robinson. Bijan comes in on his rookie deal. You get him for 3 years. Then you hit him with the good old-fashioned franchise tag, 4 years. Maybe you tag him again, 5 years. Now all of a sudden this cat is 27, 28 years old. He's got a ton of mileage on him. Are you going to give him a big deal for 27 through 30? Absolutely not. When you know the average lifespan of the NFL running back is 4 years? It's not a quarterback. A 27-year-old quarterback has got a ton. That's their prime pretty much. A 27-year-old running back, that's the end. They've already reached the peak of their career. So the way that contracts are set up behooves teams to drop a running back after that first contract. I've said this for a long time. I don't think you should be able to tag players outside of their or after their rookie deal because of this exact situation. Why would a team not just do that? Why would a team not just tag the player and get another year or 2 years outside and extend that already short lifespan? And what this young man said too, I don't think it's as much to do with how much passing there is, because that's been happening for a while. I think it's more so the way that the running back, the role of the running back, the more that, like he talked about, specialized running backs. So third down backs, backs that are better receiving, backs that are better at blocking, backs that are better running downhill, backs that are better running on to the outside. Just like I said with the baseball comparison, teams are willing to carry 2-3 of these backs, some of them being quarterbacks, some of them being wide receivers, some of them being kind of a tweener kind of character. They're willing to carry those backs and play them for those packages. So already the rushes were getting eaten into because of how much passing there was, but that was 10 years ago. But on top of that now, analytics and coaching staffs and things like that, they're more willing to go into that specialized back. It doesn't matter what the situation was. Emmitt Smith was going to be on the field, right? And I was a little too young, so I can't really speak to what Emmitt could do with his hands. But nowadays, if Emmitt was on the field, but you had a better receiving back, on a receiving down, the better receiving back is going to be in there, right? So it's just a philosophical shift of the quote-unquote bell cow back.
2003, there were 13 backs who carried the ball 300 times or more that season. Last 10 years, last decade, an average of just under 2 backs per season carrying the ball 300 or more times, and they get an extra game the past couple of years. That's bumped up the numbers a tiny bit. So absolutely, the talent is still there, but I think the game is evolving to a point where that sort of guy we picture in our head about being a bell cow back is not really actually playing out on the field.
True.
Yeah, Bill's right. It's a number of factors, right? It's the game changing, the committee approach you just outlined, the fact that I think teams are increasingly aware that they can get comparable production from younger players on cost-controlled contracts.
I mean, do I know the game or do I know the game? Exactly. The controlled contract and the projection. That's what I'm talking about. Like, let's say Bijan Robinson, or he's a bad example, but let's say a running back you feel like he's going to have 1,200 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns and a handful of receptions for 200 yards, whatever. You can get that production out of a whole lot of people, whether it's one player or whether you're combining players. And I said the MLB comparison with the starting pitcher, it's more so with the saves. It's more so with the closer. 20 years ago, every team had a setup guy and they had a closer. And you knew no matter what the situation, the closer was going to get the ball at the end of the game. He's our closer. He gets the opportunity. Nowadays, it's all closer by committee. It's all, well, they got 2 lefties coming up, so we're going to throw a lefty. Well, this guy doesn't hit well against this reliever, so we're going to use him. We'll use our closer in the 8th inning. That happens a lot now. I mean, it's just, they're going to lean on the passing part. Like, you're going to keep hearing that. And I feel like that's the easy way out because it makes so much sense and it's so easy to say. But the NFL, I mean, passing, you're talking about, we're 10 to 15 years like away from that. We're 10 to 15 years away from that big shift of the passing being the predominant way to move the ball. So if someone says that, it's like, well, yeah, but you can go back to the 07 Patriots or whatever, and that's when that all kind of really took over. I mean, there hasn't been a true bell cow back on a good team. Like, that hasn't been the style of a winning team in, I mean, probably well over 15 years. I mean, you'd have to go back to like Priest Holmes or like player Jamal Lewis. You have to go back to those kind of players. Because even like Chris Johnson, like if you look at when Chris Johnson, the Titans when he had his 2,000-yard rushing, I mean, they were good, but they weren't a Super Bowl contender team. So, and that was probably what, 08, somewhere 09, something like that. So it's been before that, I would say.
And this, to me, it's not like teams woke up and said, we're going to pay running backs unfairly. The NFL is a hard-capped league. That money is just going elsewhere. When you look at franchise tag values over the last few years, as running backs have gone down, wide receiver contracts, offensive line contracts, I think teams are more aware of the role that run blocking plays in rushing efficiency. That's where the money is going.
See, that again, I don't think that's the case. I think the offensive line is a different topic here, but I think the offensive line has become much more important because of how important the quarterback position has gotten, which has then made the pass rusher more important, right? Same thing on defense. 20 years ago, what'd you want to have? Big Tony Siragusa-esque defensive lineman plugging up the middle for run, stopping gaps, plugging it up, and then you wanted your middle linebackers and your Ray Lewises and your Zach Thomases and your Brian Urlachers to dominate the game. Then, whenever quarterbacks became so good and passing became so good, the only way to counter that was to get after the quarterback. So then it became, okay, we need a defensive lineman who are athletic, quick, can get to the quarterback, can disrupt the passing game. Well, that then changed the offensive line importance from, okay, now the offensive line is super important because we have to protect the quarterbacks. So it's all just a chess match domino effect of what's going on here.
I don't think it's a matter of fairness so much as it is reflecting how they perceive value. Now, what is unfair, and where I think running backs have a truly legitimate gripe, is the timeline and how it uniquely affects them. Think about this.
She's about to lead into the franchise tag thing. She's about to say what I've been saying for 5 years on this channel, which proves that Mina Kimes is a big fan of this channel. She's probably watching this video right now. Thank you, Mina, for watching the channel.
Average NFL running back works for free for 3 years in college. Maybe you can make some NIL money. Then they come to the NFL where
rookie deal
salary can be cost controlled for as many as 5 years. We're looking at some of those scenarios right now with the franchise tag guys.
Yes.
And so by the time they're able to actually get a contract determined by the market, they're usually older than the age of 26, which is when
Adam Schefter, get a
running
water.
backs tend to peak in production. To me, that's the major problem with running back salaries. It's how they're uniquely affected by the wage scale, and even before that structural problem. It's not NFL teams failing to appreciate their value once they do reach free agency.
100%.
I remember back in April of 2020, Christian McCaffrey had an offer on the table from the Carolina Panthers about signing an extension that he went back and forth on whether or not to sign it. Well, he did go ahead and sign that $64 million deal over 3 years ago. And that still stands as the richest contract that we've seen for a running back. It was not broken in 21, 22, 23. What other position in the league would go that long, 3-4 years, without seeing somebody top a mark of a contract from over 3 years ago? That's
But he's why that is worked like that, because McCaffrey was so good that teams are looking at him. Because I remember when Kamara and Joe Mixon, they all wanted their contracts. And if Christian McCaffrey's making $60-something million for 3 years, why the hell am I going to pay Joe Mixon more? Why am I going to pay Alvin Kamara more? And then those running backs say, well, I want the same. I say, well, you don't do the same production. And then it ends up being, we can just find the same production from a young guy who are paying on a rookie deal and some free agent for $50 million cheaper. So it's kind of not McCaffrey's fault, but it's the fact that no running back has been good enough at that pivotal contract point to warrant the contract. I said at the beginning of the video, Christian McCaffrey's a great example where, as good as he was, what did it mean for Carolina? Not much. We saw when he left, some people said that the analytics for the running game was better for Carolina when McCaffrey left. Is it true? I'd look into it.
Unheard of, but that's the state of the running back position right now, to where Christian McCaffrey's contract, signed over 3 years ago, still stands as the richest running back contract in the game.
No question. It's been a stagnant market. And I think the tough part is we're seeing teams struggle to even identify which backs they should be drafting and developing. And I think the classic example here are the Kansas City Chiefs, where they went out and used a first-round pick on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was going to be the perfect fit for that offense. He struggled, And the Chiefs brought in Isaiah Pacheco last year, one of the last picks in the draft, a 7th rounder, and he fundamentally changed that offense.
Now, you may be sitting here wondering, like, James, 14 minutes ago, you used Pacheco as an example. And now this walking bazooka bubblegum piece is using Pacheco as an example. Like, how do you do it? You know, how do you just, with no notes, with nothing around you, you know, no producers, editors, how do you do this? And it takes a panel of hungover ESPN analysts it takes them 15 minutes to get to the point you made 15 minutes ago. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we say it almost every video, but I mean, no one can do what I can do on this tube of you. You know what I'm saying? We'll end it there. I think we've talked about the running back situation enough. Y'all understand the situation is a perfect storm of issues. It's the game changing. It's the players' production not being at the level to where is that far ahead of someone else. And it's also the contracts. It's also the way that the years and the contracts and the tag lines up with the prime of this position of these players. So let me know in the comments below what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Will the running back position ever become more in vogue? I think it will. I think it will at some point. I think once running backs, what will happen is a running back like a Le'Veon Bell, this is how I think it'll work. I think a running back will be so good at receiving and running, like Le'Veon Bell was, that for that first chunk, they'll be a running back. Then I think they'll shift to the Cordell Patterson role, where they're mostly a receiver, but they're also carrying the ball 10, 12 times. And the second contract, the big contract, is for like this new hybrid position where they're playing wide receiver 50% of the time, running back 50% of the time. They're also playing some tight ends. They're moving around a lot. They're kick returning, things like that. That's what I think will bring the running back market back, is when they can find value and they can extract value out of the years 27 through 30. Now, in order for that to happen, you're going to have to take carries away. You see with Cordell Patterson now, he gets worse at the back half of the year because he can't tote the rock 250 times. So if you can find a running back who is okay with toting the ball 200 times, but then shifting into more of a receiving / running back. And I don't mean receiving from the running back slot. I mean being a tried and true receiver and being really, really damn good. I remember at Le'Veon Bell's peak of his powers, people argued that if he just was a receiver, he would be a top 10 receiver in the NFL. So I think it's going to take a team taking a risk and almost creating a new position for those contracts to come back. Let me know what you think about that. And anything else in this video. Thank you for watching. I am the best.